Yo, now I also have to double check. What's up, guys? What up, Bob? Yeah, man. Hola, hola. Bob's not here today. Rip, Ripperino. I will be solo Q&A today. And before we start, I don't see myself live on LinkedIn yet, so I do not know what's going on. Can anyone talk to me in the chat? Yeah, I see myself now. Can someone just drop a comment in the chat on LinkedIn, and someone drop a comment on YouTube por favor. Yeah, I see him live on LinkedIn now. What up, my LinkedIn peeps? Working on YouTube, cool. Working on YouTube, Beton Starter. All right, guys, welcome back to another live Q&A. Today it's just me. Bob is moving back to Spain today. Lucky him. So he won't be joining us. He's actually in the train right now in the intercity to Schiphol Airport. So he's watching me. New mic, new merch. Well, I got new merch, PPC merch, but the mic, I was a little bit late, as you can see, and I was trying to set it up, but it would have taken me like 5 more minutes. So I'm actually not using the new setup. But for future editions, guys, okay, it's blurry. Oh, spoiler alert. It's blurred. But this is the Shure MV SM7B or something, like the real podcast mic. So starting next week and all next editions, I will have crystal clear, crisp sound, just like Bob on his setup. So yeah, guys, cool. I see a lot of you have joined. Khadija, we see you. LinkedIn user, what up? Frank is here, Geert is here, Betonstarter is here as always. Cool, I see a lot of new faces as well on YouTube, that's nice. Bob, you're getting safe travels from Alex, so that's awesome. Um, as always, guys, drop your questions that you might have in the chat. What's up, Martijn? What's up, Afzal? Thanks for joining us. I will start, as always, with a few questions from Discord, and then I will move on to questions from the chat. So, what I'm going to do today is not linger too much on one specific question. I just want to, because on most Q&As that we don't get to answer like 50-60% of the questions because it's just too much in too little time. So today I want to take fewer time per question and try to answer as many as I can. So with that note, I'm going to start with that's muted. Sorry. I'm going to start with some questions from Discord, and then already drop your questions in the chat on LinkedIn and YouTube, because there's a really big chance that I'm gonna handle those. I hope I can answer them all. I didn't really do any prep, so let's just dive in. Oh, also seeing a GM from Edwin. GM, everyone that's here from PPC Hub. Welcome, GM. All right, guys, let's move on. Let's begin with the first question. Suus is asking, I'm looking for a way to show our country managers with less to zero online knowledge in one slide or dashboard how much revenue which campaign delivers and how many customers it gives. The question is basically followed up by some context, but basically the question is, okay, I want to report to my manager or managers that have little experience in online. How do I do that? And Martijn was actually also asking the same. He was asking how we report in general. So I'm just going to give my perspective. And this is not like foolproof. I'm not a data studio wizard or Looker Studio wizard. I try to simplify everything as much as I can for myself and my clients. So this is how I do it. For one, I make sure that whenever I'm talking to my clients, it's on a really on a low key basis. So what I mean with that is I try to have short communication lines with my clients. And before I started freelancing and before I was working with my own clients, I was working at an agency. And I remember at the agency, we would spend a lot of time on reports and on decks and on all those things. And what I noticed is that a lot of the times, a lot of the things that we were reporting on were not being read. They were just not being read at all. And it's basically big waste of my time as a specialist, but also for the client because they're paying for that time that I'm reporting. So now my most important thing when I'm working with clients is actually making sure that we have short communication lines and that we discuss anything on a daily basis or maybe like a few times per week. It depends on how big the client is and how many hours you have available, of course. If you only have a few hours, then you're not going to spend too much time on communication. But by doing so, most of my clients I'm on Slack with. In doing so, I make sure that most of the daily stuff, the small things are already being discussed. And then when I report, I just report on some of the like the bigger trends. And since we're already like on top of it together, we don't need to go into much detail too much in those reports. So for a lot of clients, especially if you're working with C-level or management, they don't want to know impression shares and they don't want to know CPCs and they don't want to know quality scores and all those things. So what I now do is I have a one sheeter basically. You could create it in Data Studio. I just haven't done it myself recently. Actually, I might be a bit lazy when it comes to reporting these days because we have such fast communication, and it's also because of the clients that I'm working with. But now when I report, it's just like basically a one sheeter of the most important KPIs that we have discussed together, which is also an important point. Like before you make any report, before you report on anything, make sure that you're aligned together on what you actually want to showcase. You don't want to overload, especially in your case, Suze, you don't want to overload your country manager with zero online knowledge, with all these nitty gritty details. Ask them in advance, that's probably the best thing that you can do for yourself. Ask them in advance, um, what do you actually value and what is important to you? What do you want to see? So if they say, yeah, we just want to know how many customers did we get this month, how much revenue did we generate, how much did we spend, how much was there in return, and how much did we spend per customer. Those are usually like bottom line, the most important things, right? You want to know how much did we spend and how much did we get back. Um, Remove those assumptions on what you think your manager or client needs to know by just simply asking them. And then if you ask them, then it's really easy to just report on that. And in a lot of cases, they just want to know how much did we spend, how much did we make, where did it go well, where did it not go so well, where can we improve, what should we keep on doing, what should we change. That's basically it. And for me, that's super simple. Now I actually use Notion. I just copy paste some screenshots in there, or you can use Data Studio, and then it's already like automated, which is much more efficient if you're working with a complex client. Client of mine that I'm working, big one that I'm working with now, is active in a lot of countries in Europe. They have already built their own dashboard, which is super nice for me because then I can just use that. And then they have a dashboard, it's like 10 or 15 pages, but management only uses the first page, which is the summary, which is okay, how much did we spend? And then you can create a filter for every country or overall, and how much did we make? And that's basically it. That's super simple. That's how I do it. I'm sure there are much more advanced ways to go on reporting, and I'm sure there are a lot of different ways people actually use reports. I know Bob is also a fan of Data Studio, Looker Studio templates. Maybe he can talk about that in the future. But I just try to keep it as simple as I can for myself. So yeah, I hope that helped. Great. We have some more people joining. Hola, welcome Arthur. Chris, welcome. Uh, yeah, yeah. Good question from Sarah on LinkedIn. Hey, is there any way that we can analyze our asset group performance in Performance Max? Whenever I check it, it shows not available. Um, First, I yeah, I have a sort of an extra question for you, but do you want to analyze the asset group performance or the listing group performance? Because if you export data from Google Ads, or if you use the PMax Insights report from, for example, Agency Savvy from Mike Rhodes, then it's pulling the data from the listing groups, so basically the product groups inside of your asset group. It is not possible to see the data for every asset group compared to each other, except if you pull the data from the listing group. But the listing group data is only a portion of the total data inside that asset group data. So it's not possible to see the complete performance of asset groups because asset group performance consists of performance from, or data from, your listing groups, which is shopping feed data. But then there's also inside of an asset group, you could see search data, you could see display, discovery, YouTube. Those are some of these data points are not available to extract from the listing group performance. So it's really hard to compare all asset group performance of all asset groups side by side. But if you want to, yeah, I guess be a little bit less wrong, you could try and pull the data from the listing groups. For lead gen, that's a lot harder. You can use the script from Mike Rhodes. Just look him up on LinkedIn or Agency Savvy, and that's the one that I use, and it shows you the breakdown of your spend on shopping network, video, and other, which could contain search, display, discovery, some other placements. And yeah, it's not complete, it's not waterproof, but it's better than nothing. So yeah, hope that helps. For the last question, good, Martijn, I'm happy that helped. If there's any other other ways to improve that, just let me know. Ali, what would be the best way to get a second opinion on the accounts I manage if I'm a one-man team? Yeah, man, that's a good question. I think this is something that a lot of us are struggling with, especially if you're a freelancer or if you're working at an in-house team and that you're basically the only one managing the account. If you're still here, can you tell me what's your situation? Are you freelancer? Are you in-house team? Let me know, because I'll deep dive a little bit on this. Because what you can do, and it depends on maybe you're running your own campaigns, you need to find a way to externally find new knowledge. And one way, of course, to do that is to join our Discord. I'm actually gonna pull the link up. You can join our Discord, and we have almost 3,000 people in there. And we have a specific channel for questions. So that's where you can ask any and every question. And you can just get feedback from other PPC Google Ads specialists. So that's one. That's nice. Oh yeah, I see. Ali, I'm in-house, but also do freelance on the side. So if you're in-house, definitely PPC Hub will be a great resource for you. Of course, these types of Q&As, since you're here, you're already looking for extra data and extra insights. So that's nice. You need to be proactive in where you look for knowledge and insights. So that's one. And secondly, if you need if you're not completely sure whether you're doing all the right things, just buy a second opinion in the form of an audit from a specialist. A lot of freelancers and agencies, they offer these services where they just do an account check for you. I used to do them as well, not doing them now as much because I'm just too busy building PPC Mastery with Bob. But when I did them, I also got a lot of requests from brands and people that just wanted a second opinion, and they didn't want an additional person to manage their campaigns. They just wanted a second opinion from me, basically to hear like, oh, are we doing all the right things? Is there anywhere that we can improve? And I always start off those audit presentations with stating that I'm not there to take the business away from whoever is managing it, but I'm just here because it was requested, and then just providing some additional insights on what I thought could be improved. So definitely look for other specialists, other freelancers, maybe even drop it in Discord, because I'm sure there are a lot of people that can help you with that. Okay. Yeah, so Tanya, could we have the PPC channel, please? We'd love to get in touch with other specialists. It's here on the screen actually. Go to ppcmastery.com/community. You're welcome to join. Sounds good, man, Ali. Great. Mahmoud, when I scale the campaign by increasing the budget, the cost per conversion increases and the number of conversions decrease. So what should I do? What kind of campaign is this, man? Yeah, let me know what kind of campaign is this. If it's a performance max, then you need to be aware of how changing the budgets can actually impact your performance. And I think, especially if it's a full-on performance max with all assets and not only feed only, then increasing the budget can have a big impact on your performance, as you're also noticing now. Because as you start to spend more on PMax, and if your, let's say, bottom of funnel is already like pretty stable and there's not a lot of room to expand there, because with bottom of funnel feed only PMax, you're limited to how much search volume there is. So there's only like a limited pool of people that you and pool of data that you can take from. If you increase your budgets, then it a lot of times Performance Max will just start to spend more on upper funnel placements like video, display. So yeah, and those placements tend to have higher conversion cost per conversion, etc. But I see, yeah, it's a search campaign. You know, you're noting in the chat. So yeah, so that's a hard one. If you increase your budgets on a search campaign, cost per conversion increases, the number of conversions decrease. What you could do if you're running target CPA, you could decrease your CPA targets. If you run target ROAS, you could increase your target ROAS. Maybe look at into your your keywords. How well targeted are they? Look at the match types, etc. Yeah, this is super hard to give advice on, because it's I have no context, so it's a little bit hard. Cool. Let's get one more question from Discord. PRG is saying, I'm going to review a client's product feed. How do you review and test to see if a product is triggered by a certain query in a reliable way? For one, if you're running standard shopping, you can just check the search term reports, which is super valuable. And if you're running PMax, run it for a few days, and then check the Insights tab, and then go to the search term trends, like somewhere in the at the top. It will show those search term trends, and you can see if a query that you're actually trying to match on is popping up in the report there. I have to say, with PMax and those insights on the search term insights and insight report tab, you can only see the data for the last 7 and the last 28 days, which is super limited, and I hate it, but it is what it is. So you need to give it a little bit of time, like a few days, in order for that data to really pop up. One thing that you can also do is Google, go to I search from. I have to actually double check if this is correct. I search, it's called isearchfrom.com. So let me actually put it in the, I can put it in the chat on LinkedIn. So it's isearchfrom.com, and there you can select a country that you're browsing, want to be browsing from, and it shows you how the search engine result page looks like for a specific query on a specific country with a specific language and a specific device. That's also a way that you can actually test to see if your ad pops up on a specific query. You could also try VPN, of course, but iSearchFrom is a nice handy tool that you can use for that. So it's isearchfrom.com. Good question. Let's move to another one from Discord. Sherry is asking, is there a way to track results from campaigns, new versus returning customers, if the campaign is only one? Yes, definitely. Go to your campaigns, and above the table with the data, so below the graph and above the table, there's a small thing that says segment. You click on segment, and then you do conversions. It's another like drop-down menu, and then you select new versus returning customers, and that will show you how many conversions you got from new versus returning customers. In order to run this successfully, you need to have set up new versus returning customers tracking capabilities in your preferably tag manager. Yeah, Gennaro 83. I read that it is useful to insert a set of keywords that people use to search for the product at the end of a description. How do you do that? So this is actually something that I use a lot, and it's basically keyword stuffing at the end of a description, product description in your product feed. So one thing that I have to note, and your question was too long to paste here, but you also said, um, how do you add them to the end of your description line without adding them on the product page? So there's a few ways to do that, and my favorite way is using a feed management tool. My favorite feed management tool is Channable. It's just really, really good. I haven't really used Data Feed Watch myself a lot, but Channable is great. And what I then do in Channable, basically in Channable, you import your feed from, let's say, Shopify or your backend. Then in Channable, you create a new feed, and that feed has a new URL. So it's completely unattached to Shopify anymore because you imported in Shopify. You imported from Shopify into Channable. Then in Channable or your feed management tool, you can edit your new feed. So what I then do is I create a rule. For example, add keyword X, Y, and Z, whatever those keywords are, at the end of the description. You could do it in bulk, you could do it per ID, doesn't really matter. And then from there, you get a new URL, a feed URL that you then send to Google Merchant Center. And that way, by putting the keywords at the end of the description in your feed in Channable, it's not being added to your description in Shopify or your backend, which is great because you don't want to put a lot of keywords at the end of the description on a product page. That just looks silly and looks spammy. But for your Google Shopping ads, it's pretty okay because most people, and most people, don't see the description because you only see the description at the end when you actually go to the shopping tab, and most people don't really do that. So that's that. I hope that was useful. Cool. Let's get some more questions from the chat. Anyone else got a burning question? Let's see if we can take a few more. Musta Hit. I hope this name is being pronounced correctly. If not, I'm so sorry, man. Hi, mate. I also manage solo a bunch of B2B clients and would appreciate your point of view for B2B strategies, tracking with offline conversions, optimizing for soft and hard conversions, custom audiences, match types. Do you have a course? Well, actually, we have the Google Ads Masterclass that is launching next week, but the registrations are already closed. But yeah, when it comes to B2B, I'm also working with a B2B client that is it's not lead gen, actually, it's just straight ecom, but they're in insulation, but most of the clients are business to business. So when it comes to B2B, it can be really hard to find the right audience. But for my case, the client that I'm working with is really straightforward. Like the keywords that people are looking for, like cheap insulation or specific brands of insulation or specific types of insulation, those keywords actually exist. So it's really easy actually to catch that demand, and that's a key part actually. We don't really have to create a lot of demand because people are actually already looking for specific products and specific brands there. So that's a bit different. But in your case, I'm assuming it's lead gen. And I was actually going to say the same. Bob is still here. He said, I can take this question next week. So I will actually see if I can copy paste your, I will make a screenshot of your question. And we will answer it next week when Bob is back, because he's our lead gen expert and much more capable of answering this question than me. Okay, Phil. Fair enough, man, Phil. So stay tuned for next week. Bob will be here to answer that question for you. Any other questions, guys? Uh, if a brand keyword hits in PMax search category, is it okay, or do I have to exclude it from PMax? Sarah, next question again. Yeah, I have a pretty strong opinion about this, and I'm not afraid to share it. Some people will disagree with me, but my opinion is most of the times you should exclude branded search from Performance Max, and here's why. Um, unless it's like 1%, or if you have a brand that is only like excuse me, a couple of impressions per month, or if it's a really unknown brand, or if your brand is actually a generic search term. Okay, in those cases, you might want to keep it in PMax. But apart from that, I would say exclude branded search terms from Performance Max, and here's why. Your brand, you always have completely different strategies, or I mean goals for branded versus non-branded traffic, right? We've been splitting up branded search and non-branded search forever in search campaigns, and it is because we have different goals for them. So on the one hand, we have branded search. We just want to maximize visibility, maximize impression share on our own, and a specific position as well, like absolute top in most cases on our own brand, because we want to defend the position for our own brand, right? We don't want our competitors to steal our customers when they're looking for our brand already. So that's one. You have impression share goals mostly on branded search, because your ROAS is always like much higher than non-branded search. Then on the other hand, you have non-branded search, and your ROAS will be much lower. Cost per conversion will be much higher, of course, because these are people that are not convinced yet to buy from your brand. So these two things have completely different goals. Now with PMax, Google is actually taking all of the search terms inside of Performance Max, because it's just, yeah, in theory, you could create a long list of search term keywords, not necessarily exact match, but any match that keyword with a specific keyword text, and that could make sure that you're actually matched on your branded search campaigns. But PMax can also take priority in a lot of cases if ad rank is higher. And sure, if you have the exact keyword in your search campaign, then in theory, PMax should not match that search term. But I have actually seen the opposite myself, and I see that PMax is cannibalizing on a lot of those campaigns. And I don't want PMax to show branded search data in most cases, because it's just inflating the data. Let's say you normally get a 300% ROAS. This is random numbers, right? But let's say you get on average 300% ROAS on non-branded search. Then if you run a PMax campaign, your ROAS might be 360, 400, 450%, and you're like, oh, PMax is working really well. But then you do an analysis and you see how many of the conversions are actually coming from brand, and then you see, like, even if it's 10%, it's already a lot. But sometimes I've seen up to 40%, which is crazy. If you extract them, then maybe your ROAS is like 200% or 250, and then maybe below your non-branded target. So that's why I want to exclude branded search from PMax, because it's just inflating the data, and I want clean data sets that I can trust. And yeah, that's basically it. There's always some catches with this, of course, and there are some cases when you should not do it. But in most cases, I'm a fan of excluding that from PMax, because then Performance Max just becomes a sort of non-branded prospecting campaign, and then I can just catch all of the branded search traffic in my branded search campaign and branded standard shopping if I'm also running shopping, which is important, because if you exclude branded search from PMax, then it's also going to be excluded from the shopping network. So that's why you want standard shopping as well. We wrote actually, go to ppcmastery.com to our blog section, your newsletter section, look for the performance edge number 14. This is where you went in depth on this case, because there's a lot of nuances here that I cannot touch on because I will be speaking for way too long. But those are just some considerations from my side. So yeah, I hope it was useful. Last question, guys. Last question. Anyone got a last burning question? And then we can finish it up for the weekend. One more question, guys. Yeah. Afzal, great final question, man. I love this. There was a bit of a discussion lately on remarketing not working, audiences, data sources due to Ecom product ID. There's not a lot of information to find on this. What are your thoughts? Yes, this is great. Actually, one thing to note, Ecom product ID is now just regular ID or item ID. I was corrected on this as well this week by, I forget his name, I'm sorry for not shouting you out. But just double check your remarketing parameters by going into your audience tag. So audiences or audience manager, and then into the audience tag, and then see if there's any errors, and then scroll a little bit down and see if the parameter item ID or ID is actually getting hits, which basically means that Google can read that a specific product page is being visited. Someone has actually visited a specific page of a product, because then they can use that for dynamic remarketing of that specific product. Double check if it's working. If not, ask your developer to make a change to the data layer. This is actually something that we will be. Yeah, you said Ruben for the shout out. It's just ID. Thanks, Bob. Ruben Runneboom for the shout out. Yeah, he's been talking about it as well. But I'm actually looking for someone else's name, but I don't remember. But I'm sorry for that. But yeah, ask your developer to see if they can match the ID and the data layer, so that it can be picked up by Google. I'm butchering this a little bit because yeah, I usually just forward it to our developer and they fix it. But this is a good focus point for me to really nail down and yeah, get clearer in my answer. So thanks for asking that. I know Bob is way advanced in this. He's also correcting me like it's just ID. Next week we have the Google Ads Masterclass, and this is one of the advanced tracking solutions and optimizations that we have in there. One of many. So he will be talking about that, and yeah, I'll see if we can write something about this as well, because I know that a lot of people are struggling with this. But if you're in the Google Ads Masterclass next week, then you'll get some good insights from Bob on this specific issue. So guys, all right, that's it. That's it for today. It's just me. Next week, Bob will be here again, and yeah, I want to thank you all for coming. If you are new here, we do this every week, or at least try to do this every week. We're just gonna let's see. Yeah, if you wanna get one advanced Google Ads tip in your mailbox delivered every Monday, just subscribe to our weekly newsletter, the PPC Edge. Go to ppcmastery.com/blog, and that's it. You may have heard me mention the Google Ads Masterclass that's going live next week. It's 4 weeks of 8 live workshops. It's actually, registrations are closed, but if you want more information on that, we have a waitlist for future editions. Just go to ppcmastery.com and you will find everything you need. So yeah, you're welcome, Afso. For everyone else, thank you for joining. If you're not in our Discord, we are almost at 3,000 PPC specialists in there. Just go to ppcmastery.com/community and yeah, you can join for free. You don't even have to opt in email address, anything like that. So yeah, cool guys. Thanks for joining, and I will see you in the next one. Peace. Have a good weekend.